Here come the drums. Welcome to the Mark Peterson Show. This is the show where news and views are combined with parapolitics from a blackish point of view. Guys, we just finished up the midterm elections of 2018. The Democrats have taken the House, and the Republicans have extended their majority in the Senate. The mayor of Tallahassee, Andrew Gillum, ran for governor of Florida and looked like he was going to become the state's first African-American governor. He lost. Stacey Abrams took on the Secretary of State who was in charge of the vote. Literally. He was running for governor, Mr. Kemp, and she gave him a good fight. And it looks like she is going to lose. Many African-American voters are wondering, when are we going to see those Obama days again? When African-American politicians are going to win the big offices? Well, this show is dedicated to you. If you're wondering why the coattails of Barack Hussein Obama could not sweep Andrew Gillum into office and pull Stacey Abrams across the threshold, because I know it's a big concern. In the age of Trump, African-American voters are trying to find their place within the electorate. The Democrats haven't necessarily carved out a position. They haven't necessarily stood behind the legacy of President Obama. And certainly everything that we can see from the Republican Party has been an attempt to roll back many of the safeguards that were put in place by President Obama and whitewashing literally everything that he did positively to supercharge the economy. So blacks find themselves a little bit adrift in a country, but not feeling like they have a home. This show is for you. Now, if you're white or not black, any other race, you're welcome to listen to this episode. Come along for the ride, because some of these 8 steps you can also take part in. So the title of today's show, 8 steps every black voter should consider before the next election. 8 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 steps that you should take before the next election. Now, I actually wrote these in 2016. Why did I write them? Because friends of mine were literally crying at the election of President Trump. They could not believe the 180-degree slingshot back in the other direction after having the country's first black president, or first acknowledged black president. Some people say Abraham Lincoln was at least part black. I've read articles to that extent. I haven't seen it confirmed, but President Obama, the first open confirmed black president, they saw a slingshot, 180-degree turn in the opposite direction, as if the nation was trying to forget the 8 years that he served as president. So I sat down and penned these 8 things, these 8 steps, as a way to try to rectify what was happening right in front of our faces. Let's jump in. First step, register as an independent. Why? The goal is to improve black communities, not just make history. Loved having President Obama in office. Loved having President Clinton. I thought he did a lot of great stuff. My problem is that both of them spent more time meeting with preachers than with black businessmen. And partly that's our fault. We let that happen. We let religion become the spokespeople for a community that needs economic revolution, not a religious one. So if we're going to make progress, we have to start looking for the things you look for in business. Leverage. And you get leverage if you're independent, because both parties are now going to vie for your vote. No, I'm not being stupid. I'm not being zany. Just watch TV. The last 6 months of the presidential election, they weren't speaking to registered Democrats or Republicans. They were talking to the independents because they knew your vote was not yet confirmed. If a majority of blacks were independent, then we'd have the leverage to literally write a list of demands and hold both parties accountable if they didn't deliver them. That's what I've always had a problem with. In Alabama, Doug Jones took over for Jeff Sessions, who went on to become Attorney General. Now, he just got fired last week, but he left the Senate representing the great state of Alabama, where I'm from, and Doug Jones was put in as the first Democrat to hold that office in so many years. There was a huge celebration. Big percent, almost 90%, 95, 98% of black women supported Doug Jones. Now, black men were left out of that discussion, but high 90s supported him too. There was no list of demands for Doug Jones. There was no list of here's what you do for the Black Belt South once you get in there. So he got a free ride because he felt like those votes belonged to him. The same message that was put out there by Secretary Clinton, who complained that she didn't get enough vote in Pennsylvania from the inner city, that she didn't replicate the black vote that President Obama got. Now, I've never heard her complain that 52% of women went for her opponent. That was supposed to be her strong suit. President Obama pulled his strong suit. When he looked in the mirror, he saw black, he got black people to vote for him. She should have been saying the same thing. I'm a woman. 75% of women should be voting for me. At a minimum, but it didn't happen. So leverage is what we have to have. What's number 2? Because I beat that point to death. Open a savings account. No, I'm not stopping with just that. In a black bank or a local bank in your community. If they're not within your zip code, within your area, don't put it in there. But put it in a bank that's local. Why? Because retail deposits give banks more lending power. Every dollar is multiplied times 10 in terms of lending power. Put $1 million in a local bank, you get $10 million worth of lending power. So if you want your businesses to have more capital, put more capital in local banks. And if they don't make the loans to your businesses, take your money out and start your own bank. That's the real power in this country, is to make money from nothing. It's almost like being God. You wake up one day and say, let there be light, and then there's light. Except for in this case, you put $1 in a bank and you go, let there be money. And then $10 more can be lent to someone who needs a loan. They get the loan, generate money, put it back in the bank, and suddenly they can make even more loans. See, that's the magic of capitalism. And we're still trying to be in one party or another when we should be setting up banks. What's number 3? I want to stick with some money. So let's go with number 3. Demand that the NAACP and the Urban League create a venture fund. And then you turn around and contribute to it. Don't just demand it. I hate when people make demands and then they don't want to demand anything of themselves. So demand it, then you put your money where your mouth is by contributing to this venture fund. And then they turn around and invest the money in startups that are coming out of our schools and our communities. You're going, Mark, well, I've never heard of any black startups. My goodness, guys. The sharing economy was built by black people in the 1960s. It's been our whole life. Dr. King couldn't stay in motels and hotels. He had to share someone's house when he went town to town. That's Airbnb before Airbnb knew what Airbnb was. The Montgomery bus cot was Uber before Uber knew what Uber was. sharing cars and taxis and church vans for a complete year because they would not ride in the back of a bus. So we know sharing economy, we just haven't put technology behind it to monetize it. Get the NAACP to create the venture fund, put your money in it, and then that will give real economic power to what we want to do. Don't do that, and it's like you're going to go out and buy a gun and refuse to buy the bullets. What good is that going to do? It'll be a deterrent, but when you're pushed to use it, you got nothing to fire. Okay? Number 4, encourage black businesses to hire one more person. Just one. Our unemployment has traditionally been double the national average. Why? It's not racism. It's not that they don't care about us. It's because our small businesses underhire when compared to their peers who are not black. I said it. Yes, go look at the numbers for yourself. If you look at similarly situated small businesses, black people hire fewer from the community than other people hire from their community when they create the same businesses. So if we just hired, of the 2 million black businesses that are registered in this country, if they hired one more person from the community, that's 2 million more jobs. Our unemployment comes in line with the national average. That's your answer right there. So if we've got banks that are lending and demand because we're going to these businesses, guess what happens? They have the ability to hire more. But that has to start with us, guys. When I lived in D.C., they nearly ran me out of town because I wanted to ask the tough questions. I went to the Black Caucus dinners there in D.C. at the Hyatt and said, why in the heck are we doing it at the Hyatt when you got the Howard Hotel a few blocks away? Why aren't we using black limo companies and black tuxedo rental companies for people who are coming to this dinner? Why isn't that promoted as part of the agenda? But when President Clinton or President Trump or anybody has their inauguration, you want to bring that question up then. But you don't hold yourself to the same standard. How do you expect black businesses to grow if they don't have continued sustained demand? Okay? You can't make that expectation and not be consistent yourself. So demand that they hire one more person, and then you supply that demand by shopping, and then you push them towards the local banks to get the loans to expand the business. Now you're creating the economic engine. Number 5. We're up to 5 on this list now. We got 8 total steps. We're on number 5. Number 5, encourage the Congressional Black Caucus to develop a national plan for identifying and supporting young people for office, starting at local offices. When was the last time you saw that? Wow. I love John Lewis. I pray he does not die in office. I want him to have time to relax, enjoy his twilight years, and find someone and groom them for the office that he's in right now. If you haven't seen enough of that under the Trump administration, where people are groomed and pushed into offices so that they can continue the legacy for long enough to change the country to represent their way of thinking, how do you ever expect to combat that when you have people literally willing to die in office with no backup plan? Happened when I was living in D.C. back in the late 80s, early 90s. There was a push to get Justice Marshall to step down. Justice Marshall said he's going to die in that seat. He's not stepping down under the Democratic president, where you can put someone in who's in their late 40s, who would be there for another 40 years pushing for the things that Justice Marshall stood for. No, that would make too much doggone sense. Let's have him die in office when it's unexpected, under a Republican administration and have Clarence Thomas come in and be your replacement. Now, if that doesn't reverse everything that your legacy is about, I don't know what does. So the Congressional Black Caucus should be the ones developing the plan that starts at the local level, training up politicians who can one day take the seats that they will have to vacate at some point. The second thing you want them to do in that plan is figure out that when you get in power, because it will eventually happen, where the Democrats will be back in charge of the state houses and at Congress and with the House and Senate, to have a plan to say, how do we redivide the state lines to produce more opportunities for more members of the Congressional Black Caucus to join in on the fun, to grow their ranks. If John Lewis, when the last time we had control of the state, had done that, you could have split his district. He could have still won with his name recognition, and a second black person could have gone to Congress. But we don't think that way. And because we don't think that way, we always take 2 steps forward and 5 steps back and call that progress. Number 6, adopt a public school or a historically black college. Yeah. Now, people are going to call me a hypocrite because I went to an Ivy League school. Sorry for doing that, if that offends you. But for the last 5 years, I've been supporting a historically black college in Alabama. 2 of them, as a matter of fact. Donating, teaching at them, speaking at them, creating events at them. So adopt one and then drive money, opportunity, internships, anything you can to improve the quality of the student and the instruction. Because we have some fantastic schools that are hidden gems, like Tuskegee. Tuskegee graduates the most black engineers in the world, and yet you never hear anything about them on the news. They have great programs that have been around since the early 1900s. Ford Motor Company has had a program running at Tuskegee for almost 50 years, where they've designed parts of the car, manufactured, engineering, technology, things like that. Didn't know it, did you? Because it's a hidden gem. We got to stop let it being hidden and bring it out into the open. Number seven, 2 more to go. Number 7. You guys are going to get mad with me with this one. Clean up our communities. Our house. A house is an American's biggest equity investment. Most individuals use the equity in their homes to send their kids to college, start businesses, and pay off high-interest credit cards. We leave trillions of dollars unrealized when our homes and our communities are not as attractive as they could be. So that means they're undervalued. We have to demand that our local governments take some of our tax dollars and do the same thing they're doing in everybody else's community. Installing curbing, installing sidewalks, providing adequate security for our businesses, picking up the trash. All of those kind of things that make people want to live in a community. We have to start demanding those things. Tearing down old houses, adequately boarding up buildings that have been vacated. All of those things to make our communities safer. We have to demand it. Secondly, for you snooty booties out there that have extra money, instead of buying a vacation home, buy 2 or 3 houses on the other side of town that's run down and fix them up. Fix them up really nice and rent them out to nice families. Start turning those communities around. If you grew up in those communities but no longer live in those communities, that's the prime way to go back and give back. I know many of you want to go back to church over there one day out of the week and then never go back until the next Sunday. Make the community great by reinvesting in it. And many times the communities have gotten so bad, you can get some of these houses for free. I'm not making that up. Go watch Rehab Addict. She's in Detroit back when it was at its bottom, buying houses for $1 under the promise that she would fix them up. Why aren't we doing that? We should. It'll be a great investment for you and a great investment for the community. Number 8. Most important, number 8. Write a letter to your sons and daughters explaining to them that if they want to minimize the impact of racism, bigotry, misogyny on their lives, to go back and follow steps 1 through 7. If you hate me out there, raise your hand. Because I know some of you saying, this dude pisses me off. And I hope I did. Because some of this needed to be said. But we have to start thinking more globally, more economically, more independently, create more leverage if we're going to break out of the cycle that keeps the community where it is. I told you, this show combines a whole lot of stuff. Some days I'm out on the edge with parapolitics, and the others I'm going to get right up in your face and give you news and views and stuff that really matters to who we are and what we do as Americans and as Black Americans. So I thank you for listening. But if you want to make me smarter and tell me where I'm wrong, follow me on Twitter at Guerrillapreneur. Keep the conversation going. Tell me where I can make this message better. Or if you like what I have to say, give me 2 thumbs up. And subscribe and leave me some comments on this particular episode. This has been The Mark Peterson Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony Peterson, and this is the show where news and views are combined with parapolitics from a blackish point of view. Guys, never give up. Keep fighting. Here come the drums.